Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make white bread stuffing muffins. I'm going to show you how we're going to take our favorite loaf of white bread and then we're going to turn it into these cubes that we're going to dry out. I just have a loaf of white bread. I'm just going to cut it into about 1-inch pieces. I'm just using a bread knife. That way it makes nice cuts and doesn't smash the bread. And just cut it very gently. We're going to put the pieces into a large bowl. Place a towel over our bread. And we're going to set it aside. Every so often I'm going to come in before I go to bed and just flip the bread around in the bowl just to kind of air it out. I've got my bread sitting here. It was left overnight. Next, make the aromatics for this. We've got 1 yellow onion, 3 carrots, and 2 celery sticks. So let's go ahead and start preparing that. I'm going to take my onion, I'm going to cut off the ends. I'm just cutting the outer layer of my onion off. We're going to cut the onion in half. I'm just going to be using half of the onion. So I'm going to place this one off to the side. We can use that for something else. I'm just going to take my knife and I am just going to make slices. You just want to go 3/4 of the way to the end of your onion. You don't want to chop it all the way through. We're going to prop our onion up. Now I'm just going to slice about 3/4 of the way through the onion 2 times. Then I'm just going to lay it down, run my knife through it in little dices. I'm going to bring my celery over. I'm just going to cut off the ends here. Let's go to the end and make very thin strips. And then just take your knife, run it through. I've got 3 carrots. I'm going to peel them. I'm just going to cut off the ends. I'm just going to cut these into pieces like that. I'm going to bring over my chopper. This is a great tool to have in the kitchen, especially when you're chopping a lot of vegetables, especially for the holiday season. I'm just going to take the carrot that I chopped up here, place it on there. That's it. Now you could do this with the onion and you can also do this with the celery, but sometimes I just like to get my hands onto a knife and just start chopping, right? Who doesn't? I have a large skillet over medium-high heat. I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. This is going to give some nice flavor. Now it's Thanksgiving, so of course we're going to add some butter to that. Lots of butter. I'm going to bring this to a sizzle. We're going to go ahead and add our carrots. They're going to take the longest to cook. Cook these down for 3 to 4 minutes. If that's good, we're going to go ahead now and add our celery and onions. We're going to cook this for another 3 minutes until the celery and the onions are nice and softened and the carrots are as soft as you want them. That's the whole trick to these, is those carrots. Once these are done, we're going to go ahead and turn off the burner. We're going to start seasoning. I have half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper. We've got 1/4 teaspoon of thyme, half a teaspoon of dried rosemary, 1/4 teaspoon of dried sage, 2 1/2 teaspoons of dried parsley. I'm just going to mix this all together. Now we're going to add our broth to the vegetables. You want about 3 cups. Now I'm making my own from this Better Than bouillon. This is a vegetable flavoring and it is so delicious. We're going to go ahead and add this into our vegetables. Just going to mix this all together. Now at this point, what you want to do is get a spoon, taste your seasonings and your broth and your flavorings, and make sure that's how you want your stuffing to taste like, because I mean, once you make your stuffing and bake them, you can't go back and fix it, okay? So check it now. Oh my gosh, there's Thanksgiving in the pot right there. Okay, I've got my dried bread cubes. I'm just going to place half of them into a large bowl. I'm going to use a bowl bigger than the bowl that I had them in. That way we can really get a good mix on it, because this was filled to the top with breadcrumbs. What I'm going to do now is take half of that mixture. I'm going to pour it over the bread. Just going to take my wooden spoon and just kind of move it around. You don't want to smush too much. We still want it to have texture. Then I'm going to add about another third of the bread. I'm doing it in batches, that way it can all absorb that liquid. I'm going to put about half of what's left. Kind of give this a mix. I'm going to add the rest of the bread cubes, and then I'm going to put the rest of that mixture over the breadcrumbs. All right, let's mix this all up, and then just keep pulling the bread from the bottom to the top. Well incorporated. Let's go make the muffins. We're going to be using a 12-cup standard muffin tin. I'm going to spray each muffin tin with some non-stick cooking spray. I'm using a half measuring cup, and I'm just going to put the stuffing into it. And then I'm going to start filling the cups with that measurement. You want it mounded, but you don't want to smash in either. Do not smash. I bet the last one always has all the good stuff. Because it gets everything from the bottom of the bowl, right? Okay, we have the 12. I've got my oven preheating at 350 degrees. We're going to cover these muffins with some foil, and what I did was I just sprayed the back side of the foil with some non-stick cooking spray. We're going to bake this for 45 minutes. Then I'm going to take the foil off, put it back in the oven, cook it an additional 15 minutes until the bread is nice and golden brown on the top and has a little crust on it. I'll be back. Aren't these the cutest white bread stuffing muffins? Let's take a look at one. How about this one right here? Everybody gets their own little serving. Oh, look how delicious that looks. We are going to create au gratin potatoes. I've used a lot of different potatoes for scalloped or au gratin potatoes. Now, the ones I find really easy to work with and will cook really delicious and absorb all those flavors are the russet potatoes. But you can use like the red potatoes or the Yukon potatoes. That's totally fine. And if you want to leave the skin on, you can do that also. Just scrub your potatoes really good. For this dish, I'm going to go ahead and just peel my potatoes. And I'm going to be using, let's see, 6 potatoes. We are ready to slice our potatoes. I'm going to be slicing them about 1/8 of an inch. You can go up to 1/4 of an inch, but it's going to cook a little bit longer. Use very hot water, pour it into a large bowl. And what that will do is start cooking those potatoes. So they cook in the oven a lot less time. So while we're cooking our sauce, our potatoes will be getting nice and tender. Now I've got my little mandolin slicer here, and it's at 1/8 of an inch. If you're going to use a knife, go as thin as you can, like paper thin. You see how paper thin those are? Or look, you can see right through them. That's how thin you want them. Got all the potatoes in there. I'm gonna make sure they're all submerged in that hot water. In just a medium pot over medium-high heat, I'm going to melt 3 tablespoons of butter. The butter is nice and melted. We got a nice little sizzle going on. We're going to add the same amount of flour. This is all-purpose, 3 tablespoons. And what you want to do is incorporate this into the butter. This will take about 1 minute. You're going to have 2 cups of milk ready. We're going to pour it in a little bit at a time. We're going to break up all the lumps. You need to season. I've got some pepper here, about 1/4 teaspoon. Make sure, because this is what's going to season everything, okay? So season, taste, season, taste. I've got some salt going in, a good amount. Look at about 1/2 teaspoon of salt, about 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Now, this is not traditionally in my recipe, but we like paprika in it. It gives it a nice color and a nice little flavor too. And we're going to be putting in some garlic powder, just a little bit. Now, if you want a lot of garlic in there, you can mince garlic and put it in there. But we just want to add a little flavor, not a lot. To mix this up, and we're going to continually mix this until it's nice and thick. Okay, we have a nice thick consistency here. What we're going to do, turn off the burner, and we're going to add 2 cups of cheese. Now I'm adding shredded cheddar cheese. All right, I'm just going to stir this in until it's well mixed and the cheese is melted. Think about all the flavors of cheese you can put in this. Look at that. Oh, yes. And that's it. All right, let's go ahead and build our au gratin potatoes. Okay, so what we're going to do is preheat our oven to 400 degrees, and then I've got some butter here, and I'm going to butter the bottom and the sides of a 9x13 baking dish. Yeah, add some more flavor. You can use regular spray if you want to use regular spray on this. That's totally fine. Okay, so I'm going to pull out about 1/3 of my potatoes here, and I'm just going to lay them on a kitchen towel and just pat them dry just a little bit. And then what you want to do is just kind of lay them in your baking dish in a single layer. Now, just as long as they're in a nice layer here, you don't have to get all fanciful because you're going to dig into this and pull it out. So, okay, what we're going to do now is take about 1/3 of this mixture here and just kind of, you know, oh my goodness, look how cheesy that is. And we're going to pour it over our potatoes here. We're going to do our second layer and then our third layer. I've got 1 cup of heavy cream. I'm just going to kind of pour down the sides. 1 cup of shredded cheese on the top. Whatever flavored cheese you want for your potatoes. We like the sharp cheddar cheese. All right, I'm just going to clean up my baking dish a little bit here. We're going to cover this with some foil. Get some cooking spray and spray one side of your foil and then place that side onto your baking dish. And what that will do is help that cheese not stick to your foil. When you pull the foil off, you're not pulling half that cheese off. All right. All right, Alright, this is ready to go in my preheated oven at 400 degrees for about 45 minutes to an hour covered. Now it all depends on the size of your potatoes that you cut them, either an eighth or a quarter of an inch, and also if you had steamed them with the hot water to kind of cook them somewhat. So it all depends, you guys. Take off the foil after that time and then put it back in your oven until that cheese gets nice and golden brown and those potatoes are cooked through and tender. How to make my Italian sausage cornbread stuffing. This is going to be great for the holidays, especially Thanksgiving. So I'm also going to be adding to this stuffing some Italian breadcrumbs, and I'm going to be using some fresh herbs. Now, if you don't have fresh herbs, you can certainly use the dried ones. That is totally fine. Alright, I'm going to go ahead now and show you everything you're going to need to make our Italian sausage cornbread stuffing. And the first thing I have here in this bowl, we're going to start off with 4 cups of, I've got a mixture of cornbread that I made a day before, and I just kind of let it dry out just a little bit and just kind of put it into big pieces. And then I have these bread cubes right here, and I just took an Italian loaf, sliced some pieces, and then dried them out in the oven. And I'm going to show you the process for both of those. Then you're going to need some parsley, probably about 2 teaspoons of that, 2 teaspoons of some garlic. I've got just some cooking oil here. I use avocado oil because I like the flavor of it. This is going to help us cook our sausage and also our vegetables. Now, our vegetables that I'm going to be using, this is kind of like a mirepoix. I've got half of a red onion that I'm going to dice up, 2 celery stalks, and 2 carrots that I'm also going to dice up. And then we're going to saute these down. I've got 1 pound of Italian sausage. This is ground. And then I'm going to be using about 2 cups of chicken broth. We're going to start with that, and we're just going to see if we need to add more into our breadcrumb mixture. Okay, we don't want it too wet, so we're going to keep an eye on that. And then what you're going to need are some herbs. Now, I picked up this plant right here from Trader Joe's, and it has the sage, it has rosemary, and then it has the thyme in it. And that's the 3 herbs we're going to be working with. So, if you want to use dried, you can certainly use dried, and as we go and put this in, I'll tell you how much of everything you're going to need. I'm also going to have some of your standard salt and pepper, just so that we can make sure everything is seasoned properly. Alright, we're going to go ahead and start, and I'm going to show you the bread process. Alright, so the bread portion of my stuffing, I am doing half and half. I'm going to be doing a cornbread, and then I'm also going to be doing an Italian loaf that I'm going to be cutting up. Now, for the cornbread, I cooked up a package here of Jiffy Corn muffin mix, and all I did was I used the cornbread Johnny cake recipe right here. It's the same recipe as the muffins, it's just that you just put it into a flat baking pan or dish and cook it that way, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to let it cool completely in there, and that way I'm able to break it up into some nice pieces. And then to go with that, I'm going to be using some Italian loaf bread right here. What I'm going to do is slice it up. I'm going to cube it up, and then I'm going to put it onto my pan here. I'm going to put it into the oven that the cornbread came out of, so it's still preheated at 350 degrees. And then I'm going to toast it up for about 10 to 12 minutes with a little bit of olive oil and maybe just a little sprinkling of salt. Cool those down, and that's what's going to be the mixture of my breads for my stuffing. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and start browning up our Italian sausage. So I'm going to go ahead now and turn on the burner to about a medium high. Alright, I'm going to add my cooking oil, just about 1 tablespoon. This will be great because once you cook off the sausage and everything and get that out of the pan, we're going to add the vegetables and they can cook in that oil already flavored with the Italian sausage. Alright, I'm going to go ahead now and add my meat. I'm going to take that paper off right there. I've got my meat masher here, meat chopper, whatever you want to call it. Alright, so while I am cooking up my sausage here, because it'll take just a few minutes to get it all nice and brown, I'm going to go ahead and start chopping up my half of a red onion, 2 celery stalks, and carrots. Take all of my sausage out and lay it into my bread here. I'm going to kind of mix this up a little bit and let the bread absorb all of that sausage flavor. We have our carrot, celery, and onions that we've diced up. I'm gonna go ahead and place them in my pan that has some oil in there. Now this is called a mirepoix, or a mirepoix. And it is like 3 vegetables, carrots, celery, and onions that you saute. All right, I'm just gonna scrape off the bottom because you know why? Isn't that where all the flavor is? Yes. Oh my gosh, it smells good already. All right, I'm gonna turn my burner back up because I turned it down just a little bit when the sausage was cooking. We are going to salt and pepper this. Give it some flavor. While that's happening, we're gonna start cutting up our herbs. I'm gonna add a tablespoon of butter to my vegetables here, my mise en place. And I'm just gonna cut that up. There we go. You know, it's Thanksgiving. Get the butter out. Get the butter out. Get some rosemary, 2 twigs. Just gonna cut those off right here. Get some thyme and some sage right here. And see about how much we're gonna need of this right here. Now with rosemary, you just kind of pull it backwards off the stem, like that. Just like that. All right. Oh, it smells so delicious. Then I got my thyme right here. I'm just going to break up and pull off the stem too. Just going to chop that up. Now if you want to just put dried herbs in there, you can certainly do that. Pull them out of your cabinet and use it. It's totally fine. Your poultry seasoning, you can put that in there. That's totally fine too. So what we're doing is sauteing down our vegetables until they're nice and soft and flavorful. We'll go ahead now and add these herbs, put them right on top. All right, I brought my garlic over here because I'm going to put about 2 teaspoons of garlic in. The sage, you just kind of roll them up and then chop it. Sage is very strong, so you got to be careful how much of that you use. This smells delightful. Alright, let's go ahead and give that a mix. And now what we're going to do is go ahead, let's add some parsley. Alright, and I've got about 2 cups of chicken broth here that I'm going to put in. Alright, we're going to mix this all together, getting all those little bits on the bottom up. That's flavor. Alright y'all, that's smelling delicious. I went ahead and turned off the burner. This came up to a nice simmer. So what we're going to do is I've got my bread and my sausage that I've kind of mixed up a little bit together. And I'm going to ladle in that delicious, oh wrong one, that delicious mixture here that we created with the spices, the mirepoix, and the chicken broth. Okay, so we go ahead now and ladle this in. That tastes delicious. It tastes delicious. All right, y'all, so at this time, make sure that your oven is preheated to 350 degrees. Oh, you can see all those herbs in there. Oh my goodness. And then while you're doing that, make sure you take another spoon and then just kind of mix it up. That way you can always see where you're at and where you need to be. All right, we're gonna still need some more there. That is looking delicious. Now, it depends on how wet you want it as to how much more you're gonna wanna put in here. This is looking good. So, but what I want, oh yeah, I want to get those carrots, celery, and the onions and the herbs out of there. So what I'm going to do is take my slotted spoon here and get all that yumminess out of there. Then that way I'm not putting any more liquid in. I'm thinking everything is looking nice and saturated in there just where I want it. We still have big pieces in there, which is perfect. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to get our casserole dish and we're going to put this in it. All right, so I've got my casserole dish here. I've got some butter, and what I'm gonna do is just smear it around the bottom and these sides just a little bit. Oh, it's gonna add another layer of flavor, you bet. All right, I'm gonna go ahead now and scoop this all in. My Italian sausage cornbread dressing, or stuffing. I'm gonna keep it very fluffy, so I'm not gonna go in and mash it down, okay? Whatever you wanna do, that's fine, but I'm just gonna keep it kind of light. Look at that, guys. All right, I am ready to put this in my oven that is preheated at 350 degrees for 20 minutes. I'm looking for a nice golden brown color on the top and also just some nice crispiness to it. All right, I'll be back. Okay, y'all, pull this out of the oven. Look at all of the colors in this stuffing. You can see the red onions, the celery, the carrots. Gosh, look how pretty that looks. All the herbs that I chopped up in here. We are going to make a delicious twice-baked potato casserole. This is great for Easter coming up, any holiday, barbecues, picnics, potlucks, just for a meal at home. What makes this a twice-baked potato? It's the fact that we're going to take a potato and we are going to bake it in the oven, and then it's going to be baked again as a casserole. It's not to be confused with mashed potato casserole, which is boiled potatoes, okay? So, delicious flavors here. You ready? Let's go. We are going to start by cleaning our potatoes. Now, I am using russet potatoes, and this is probably a large size here, and there's 6 of them, or you can go up to 8 if you have smaller potatoes than this here. We're just going to scrub these off and get them nice and clean. And then we're just going to take a towel and dry them off really well. Okay, now that we've dried off the potatoes, I'm just placing them on a sheet pan that I've lined with some parchment paper. Just going to take some cooking oil. Now, if you know my show, you know I tend to use a lot of avocado oil because it's just a good clean oil. Nice and healthy for you too. I'm going to just drizzle some on the potatoes. Oil them good. I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to stab the potato about 8 times, probably 4 in the front and 4 on the back side. That'll allow that steam to get into the potato. All right, I'm just going to sprinkle the potatoes with salt on all sides. Now, as you can see, we're not covering our potatoes with foil or wrapping them in foil. Okay, if we cook them like this right here in the oven, it'll give a nice crisp skin, and plus it'll make the inside of the potatoes nice and fluffy, which we are looking for. I'm going to place this in my oven. It's been preheating at 425 degrees for 45 minutes. I don't want to really go over that amount because we don't want to fully cook the potatoes because they are going to cook again in the oven as the casserole. All right, we'll be back. Okay, we're going to cook our bacon. Now I've got kind of a thick bacon here. I'm just going to lay it on a sheet pan that has some parchment on it. Now you want to make sure that your sheet pan has a lip to it. That way the grease from the bacon doesn't roll into your oven. I want about 6 to 8 pieces. I'm going to place this in my preheated oven at 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes until we get a desired crispy texture to the bacon here, because we want to be able to crumble it. Okay, we just pulled the bacon out of the oven. It's nice and crisp. What we're going to do is just move them over to a plate that has some paper towels on it just to kind of help drain the grease. Okay, our potatoes are now warm to the touch. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to cut these in half lengthwise. And then kind of go in, break it up a little bit. Now they're still a little firm, which is fine because they're going to still cook again in the oven. I've got my large bowl here and we're just going to spoon out the insides. And another option is you can also just take the peel and just peel it off the potato and then just cut it into the bowl. Now if you like the skin on potatoes, you can also like take a few of the potatoes and leave the skins on them. It'll give it like more of a rustic feel. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll cut these into pieces and then put those in my bowl. I'm going to finish these up and then I'm going to bring you back. Okay, so I have all the potatoes in here and I'm just going to take a masher and just kind of break these up before we start adding everything else in. Now, if you want like shape to your potatoes and you want big pieces, just keep that in mind when you do this.
If you need some muscles, I'll go get somebody that's got some.
Now, and you don't have to worry about the skins because my husband, he likes the skins from the potatoes. So he'll be eating those.
Your mom likes them too.
Yes. My mom, she lives next door to us and she's requested some of the skins too if I didn't use them. So I was really careful taking the potatoes out so she could have her skins. Okay, that's looking really good. Let's go ahead now and talk about the ingredients we're going to put in here. Got 1 cup of milk. Now I let this sit at room temperature while everything was happening. 2 sticks of butter, so this will equal 1 cup, and I let that sit at room temperature also. That will help incorporate these ingredients. Now I have my cooked bacon here.
Minus this one.
Y'all, I told y'all to keep an eye on them. 1 cup of sour cream. Now I let this sit out also. Got some green onions, some cheddar cheese. This is going to go in and then also we're going to use some for the top part of it. Okay, let's go ahead now and start incorporating that into our potatoes. All right, I'm just going to cut my butter into pats here. Since we have 6 large potatoes in here, that's going to be enough butter there. 1 cup of milk. Our sour cream, 1 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. I'm going to crumble 2 pieces of bacon. I've got some black pepper and some salt. Okay, we're going to mix this all together very carefully. I'm just using a wooden spoon right now until I get it kind of all incorporated, and if I need to mash it anymore, we'll use our masher. We're going to go ahead now and pour this into a 9x13 baking dish. We're going to lightly grease with a non-stick cooking spray. Ooh, just give me a spoon right now.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking.
That's the hard part. Keeping my husband out of the bowl right now.
Hey, I'm being good.
But you know, when this goes in the oven, he can enjoy a spoonful of this from the bowl. I'll leave a little bit in the bowl for you. How about that?
Thank you.
There you go.
Right.
All right, he's happy. All right, we're going to smooth this out. I love how lumpy this is. I don't want it smooth. Make sure you have nice pieces of potato in there. Okay, we're going to take another cup of shredded cheese, sprinkle it all over the top. 3 pieces of bacon that I've crumbled up. Now this was our pre-cooked bacon. What a fun way to make potatoes. Anybody can mash a potato. Look at this right here. It'll be the first dish gone when you make it for your meal. I'm ready to place this in our oven that's been preheated at 400 degrees for 20 to 25 minutes. I'll be back. I'm going to show you how we're going to finish topping this off and give it a taste for you. Okay, I just pulled this out of the oven. We're going to go ahead and garnish with some green onions because that's what we like on our potatoes. Now if you don't like the green onions, you can put some fresh cut parsley on there. Hello everyone. Y'all ready for crockpot sweet potato casserole? This Thanksgiving, save yourself some room in the oven for your turkey. Make everyone's favorite side dish in the crockpot. Y'all ready? I'm going to bring you up here and I'm going to show you what you're going to need. We're going to put this one together. You're going to need 3 to 4 pounds of fresh sweet potatoes, brown sugar, cinnamon, vanilla, butter, some water, mini marshmallows, and chopped pecans. First thing we're going to do is start preparing our sweet potatoes. We're going to start by peeling our sweet potatoes. You're just going to take a peeler, just peel off that outer layer of skin. You can prepare your sweet potatoes the day before, so you can peel them and cube them and have them ready to go for the next morning. Just place them into a bowl of water and put it in your refrigerator. This is about 3 to 4 pounds of potatoes. I've got about 6 average size. The sweet potatoes are peeled. I've rinsed them off in the sink. What I'm going to do is cut these into 1-inch cubes. We want to keep them all the same size so that they cook evenly. So I'm just going to cut it in half lengthwise. Sweet potatoes are pretty tough. Got to cut them very carefully. Just use the knife edge right here as a leverage. There we go. We're going to place these into a large bowl. So once we get the potatoes in, I'm just going to fill it with water to cover the sweet potatoes. We're going to set these off to the side. To make the sweet glaze to coat the sweet potatoes with, in the crock pot, we're going to place 1.5 cups of brown sugar. To that, we're going to add 1 stick of melted butter, one teaspoon ground cinnamon. Well, that smells good. Always smells like fall when you open a cinnamon bottle. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We're going to stir that all together. Should start looking like a paste. All right, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of water. Thin that out. Oh yeah, that looks really good. I've drained my sweet potatoes and we're going to go ahead and add those to the crock pot. We're going to take a spatula and we're going to mix it all together. Make sure the sweet potatoes are all coated with our brown sugar cinnamon mixture. Before we do some more good stuff to these sweet potatoes, we need to cook these down and get them nice and soft. So we're going to place a lid on. I'm going to cook mine on high for 3.5 to 4 hours, or you can cook them on low for about 6 to 8 hours. You want to make sure that you can pierce a fork through the sweet potato and they're nice and tender. And then we're going to finish these off because we're looking for some yummy sweet potato casserole. Everyone's favorite at the Thanksgiving table, right? Every so often, make sure you lift the lid and stir up the And then place the lid back on. Okay, our sweet potatoes are fork tender, nice and done. Look at that, yum. What you're gonna do while your crock pot is still on, we're gonna sprinkle 5 ounces of mini marshmallows, which is generally half a bag, just right across the top. We're gonna sprinkle some chopped pecans across the top, about 3 or 4 ounces. We're going to stir that all together. Doesn't that look good? We want to melt those marshmallows right in there. We're going to sprinkle the remaining of the marshmallows across the top. Nice and even. Another 2 ounces of chopped pecans right across the top. We're going to place the lid back on for 15 minutes. It smells delicious in there. Oh yeah. All right, look at that. All out of your crock pot. Those creamy marshmallows, the crunch from the pecans, and those sweet potatoes. Oh, that glaze that we made. All right. There's my bite. Nothing like turning fresh sweet potatoes into sweet potato casserole. That's delicious. I hope you give this one a try. Why not? I have other recipes that I've made in the crock pot for Thanksgiving. I will link them down below in the description box if you want to go check those out. And then you can also check out my Thanksgiving playlist, which I'll link down below in the description box also. All right, that's a winner for sure. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, comment down below what your favorite dish is for Thanksgiving. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below and that bell notification. That way, you'll always know when shows like this one here are posted. I'll see y'all on the next episode.